Everyone says that you should get 3 bids for your construction project, but what it actually creates is a contractor wrestling match with you playing the referee. That's why in this video, I'm going to explain how despite the 3 bid process being a useful tool for a homeowner trying to make the right decision, it could actually sometimes be misleading and end up hurting your best interest in the end, which is exactly what the 3 bid process is supposed to help you to avoid. And then I'm going to share the way that I would personally do it, knowing what I know as an insider, if I were the homeowner looking to choose the right contractor that I could trust for my project. So let's just jump right into the details. So we're actually taught that the 3 bid process is the smart decision to compare contractors so that we're finding out what the best price is. And it's all over the place. Sometimes you hear things like, take the price in the middle because that's the guy that's honest, or take the lowest price because that's the best value. And some people even say take the highest price because you know that that person is giving you everything that you want. But at the end of the day, there is no one size fits all answer to that. Like what is the way that you're supposed to do it? There is no true answer. And I think that is part of the problem. But we have this really cool graphic that we created to kind of paint the picture around this wrestling match that gets created that you don't really realize is happening. So you're bringing in 3 contractors or more or less, and you're telling them that. You're saying to a contractor on the phone or in person, hey, by the way, I just want to let you know that I am getting other bids for this project. Here's my plans, or here's my scope of work. And instantly, being a contractor, what they hear is, oh, I'm being put into a competition. And you might think that that's a good thing. And I'm not saying that. It is good for some reasons, and for other reasons, it's not so good. And here's how that breaks down. And this is what this graphic is kind of helping us to look at or describe. So when we have 3 contractors, right, they're now, and they know that they're bidding, they're now incentivized. Their incentive is to be the lowest bidder. It's to be the cheapest one because they don't want to lose the job, right? So they're doing everything that they can do to take your scope of work, everything that you want, but find the cheapest means and methods to do that. Well, of course, while that's happening, they're figuring out ways that they could maybe cut corners or do things less than what you want them, or with cheaper materials, so that they can get the project, right? So they're not focused on anymore on what you need and what you want, but they're focused on how could they win, right? And how could I beat the other guy? And that right out of the gate is what's separating or creating the disconnect, because from the very beginning, what we should be doing is listening, doing nothing but listening to what you want and what you need for this project, whether it's a brand new construction build or a deck replacement or a full remodel, all the same thing. What we don't want to do is just create this wrestling match thing where you're playing like the referee, like you can see in this graphic, and then the contractors are just literally at war. That's what we want to avoid. We want to avoid the wrestling match, but what you want to do is you want to know, how do I navigate this process so that I could find the right person for my build? Because price is important, right? So there is a way of doing that, and that's really what I'm going to explain. So here's why the 3 bid process actually breaks down. 99% of the time, if you have a design, if you're coming to the contractors with the design and you're saying, hey, here's my drawings and I want everybody to bid the same project from them. Well, designs very, very, very uncommonly have every little bit of information that lets the contractor know what the elements are, or what the materials are, or how to do the process or the thing. So you think that you're getting an apples to apples comparison, but what you'll find is you get these 3 separate estimates and they're all different. And why is that? Like you think that, well, I went to an architect, I got a design, that should be the playbook, that should be the set of instructions, but every builder is different. They interpret things differently. They build things differently. They use materials that they like better than others. So what's happening is you're getting what you think is apples to apples, but then you get something back. So not only is the scope different, but the price is all over the place, and you're like, okay, we have to start over, and let me give you the feedback now that you need to make this apples to apples. And that goes around and around in circles, and it never quite gets back to what true comparisons are. And usually, to sum that up, what happens is one contractor does a pretty good job of describing the scope, and then that's used to be the common scope across other contractors. So now we're sharing that one estimate to the other contractors so that it's all going to be apples to apples, but it's really based on what one person's was really good, right? So that's how really the first assumption breaks down, is that you're going to get an apples to apples comparison, but it's impossible unless there's been a significant amount of time and money spent with an architect that could describe every door, every piece of trim, how it's painted, with what brand and materials, which is so cost prohibitive that what we generally get is just that typical architectural design showing the size, shape of the building, maybe some details, but then it's open to interpretation from the contractor. So that's where it automatically kind of starts to go sideways. So it should be no surprise that when in the beginning of a project, things starts to pop up and go wrong right from the beginning, because it's not the way that the contractor interpreted it, and he was trying to get the best price so that he could win the job. And then right from the gate, you're discovering that this isn't really what now that I see what you're offering me, it's not really what I want, and prices just start to go up. So that apples to apples assumption is really where you start to hear where the horror stories come from. It's because 3 different people or more thought that they were giving you what you wanted, and you thought that you were getting what you wanted, but really you were getting a version that was coming from a place of competition. So what I don't want to do is try to convince you that I'm trying to persuade you to make one decision or the other, or what direction you should go in. I don't mean to do that. What I do intend is to paint a picture around how these horror stories that you hear can happen. A lot of times it starts from this very concept from the beginning: architect, drawings, 3-bid process, and then multiple different interpretations, which results in the home being built or the renovation happening, and then all of these little things popping up because the time wasn't spent up front discovering what you actually wanted. The time was spent up front getting the best price to everything. So that's where the horror stories, a lot of them, really come from. So I'm going to describe how you could still do what you want to do by comparing contractors and knowing that you're getting the right fit, but do it in a different way. So now that I showed you what the contractor wrestling match looked like, I'm going to show you a different way to approach this situation so that you could still comfortably find a contractor that you would like, but without creating this dynamic of competition. So this graphic kind of paints a different picture, and it puts basically the client, the homeowner, and the builder together in the center, and not making everything about all the other moving parts, right? So we create a team instead of competition all the way around. So that right from the beginning, we're creating alignment, we're creating trust, and we're putting the focus on what the homeowner needs and how we can help them as the builder. So that's what this graphic is basically helping us to understand. The project team works together to provide value engineering to the project. Your home is designed to be affordable, functional, and yours. And that is basically the difference between, these 2 images. So from there, that's when you should be able to decide what contractor is it that you feel the most comfortable with, and let them be the team in the middle with you, coordinating with the designer, creating the scope of work, and ending up with a situation where you are getting exactly what you need for your home, because the focus is staying on you. It's not on anyone else that it shouldn't be on. It's just strictly on you and what you need for your family and for the improvement of the home. So that would be my recommendation of how to make a slight tweak to this 3-bid process. Make sure that you know that you're working with somebody from the very beginning that you like, you could trust, and you're looking for a long-term relationship with, and then get into the details of what the project is going to be, so it ends up being 100% about you, what you need, not about the contractor, with none of those nightmare stories and surprise costs that come later.